Hey guys, let's do some one-step inequalities with multiplying and dividing. So we're still going to solve these just like we would a one-step equation or just like we did with our inequalities that were addition and subtraction. The biggest difference here is there's one extra rule that happens, and it says if you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, you have to switch the inequality sign. Okay, so if it was a greater than symbol, it turns into a less than symbol, and vice versa. I'm going to do one extra little thing off to the side over here just to kind of show you why this happens, kind of how it works for my brain. So if we had, you don't have to write this down, just kind of follow along for a second. If we had negative x is greater than negative 3, okay, if I wanted to solve this, this is really like negative 1x, right? So I would divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1 on both sides. So what I think is the original problem was the opposite of x is greater than negative 3. So if the opposite of x is greater, then x has to be less than, because this was opposite. So when I get rid of it, I have to do the opposite of our sign. And when I'm doing that, again, I'm doing this dividing by a negative 1. And then I would do negative 3 divided by negative 1, which would give me a positive 3. So the opposite of x was greater than negative 3. Well, that means that x is actually less than positive 3. Opposite would change the sign around to the opposite inequality sign. So that's just kind of an extra little thing to help explain why we do it. But we just have to make sure we actually do it every time we have a dividing or multiplying by a negative. Okay, so for this first problem, I have negative 3x, so negative 3 times x. So I'm going to divide by negative 3 on both sides. So over here I get x. On the other side, 15 divided by 3 is 5. Don't forget your sleeping dog. So negative divided by negative will leave me a positive 5. And then since in this step right here, I divided by negatives on both sides, that means I am going to flip my sign around. So instead of it being a less than, I'm going to have x is greater than 5. Okay, x is greater than 5. So then I can go ahead and graph this. Okay, so I'm going to put my dot on 5. It's an open circle because it doesn't have the or equal to symbol. And then remember, you can substitute in a number. So I can try 4 is greater than 5 and 6 is greater than 5 and decide which one is correct. Well, 4 is not greater than 5, but 6 is. So I'm going to shade toward the 6, which is to the right. All right, let's go ahead and do this one. So we're going to divide by 8 on both sides. So we get P and we get 5. Here we were dividing by positive 8. So we do not need to flip the sign. So we're going to have P is greater than 5. Okay, P is greater than 5, and then I can go ahead and graph it. So again, my circle goes on 5. It's an open circle because there's not an or equal to symbol. And then shade to the right because 6 is greater than 5. Yes. Next one, go ahead and solve it. Okay, we should have divided by 12. So we get y and we get 4. We're dividing by a positive 12, so I don't flip my sign. So y is less than or equal to 4. And then we need to graph it. So my circle is on 4. It is a closed circle this time because it has that or equal to symbol. And then I can plug in a number. 3 is less than or equal to 4. Yes, it is. So I'm going to shade towards the 3. All right, this one's a little bit trickier. So I have -4 times m, so I'm going to divide by -4, divide by -4. So 16 divided by 4 is 4, and negative divided by negative makes it +4. On the other side I have m, but here, this step, I was dividing by a negative. So since I divided by a negative, I am going to flip my sign. So 4 is less than or equal to m. But in order to graph this a little easier, remember we like to have our variable on the left. So I'm actually going to rewrite this as m is greater than or equal to 4. That step a lot of times kind of messes people up because we kind of had to do like a double flip, right? We started here, we had to flip it because we divided by a negative, and then we flipped it again over here because we were rewriting the problem, okay? And remember, you don't have to rewrite the problem like I did there in green. That's just to help you with your graphing. Either way, if you just substitute a number in, then you can easily decide which way you should shade. So my circle is going to be on 4. It is a closed circle because it is or equal to. And then I'm going to plug in a number. So 5 is greater than or equal to 4. Yes, it is. So I'm going to shade towards the 5. If you didn't rewrite it here in this method, like this one, okay, then you could still plug in a number for the original problem. 4 is less than or equal to 5 is also true. So I would still shade to the right for that one. All right, go ahead and solve this one. Just remember how to divide fractions. Okay, so we should be dividing by -1/2, dividing by -1/2. So I have x, I need to do 2 over 1 divided by 1 over 2. Remember to keep change reciprocal. So 2 over 1 times 2 over 1, which is 4 over 1, or just 4. It was a negative divided by a positive, or vice versa. So this will be a -4. And again, in this step right here, since I was dividing by a negative, I am going to flip my sign. It doesn't matter that this 2 was positive or if it was negative. It does not matter. Only the one that's like the coefficient, the one that's with the variable originally, that's what I'm looking for to be a negative. So since I was dividing both sides by negative, I'm going to flip this to say x is greater than or equal to -4. And then I'm going to graph it. So my closed circle on -4. And then substitute something in. So -5 is greater than or equal to -4. Nope, that's not right. So -3 is greater than or equal to -4. That is correct. So I'm going to shade towards -3. Maybe even pick an easier number. I don't really like picking negatives if I don't have to. So even easier would be something like 2 is greater than -4. Yes. Or I really always like to go with 0 if I can, because I think it's easy to compare to 0. All right, just a couple more. Go ahead and solve this one. It's just like the last one. Okay, so we are dividing by 1/5. Dividing by 1/5. So I have 1 over 1 divided by 1 over 5. Keep change reciprocal. So 1 over 1 times 5 over 1, which gives me 5 over 1, or just 5. So I have x, I have 5. It was a negative divided by a positive, so -5. On this one, I do not have to switch my sign because look at this step. The thing that I rewrote, what I divided both sides by, was a positive 1/5. So even though this is a negative, that doesn't matter. Remember, whatever I'm dividing or multiplying by on both sides, that's what I'm paying attention to. So I'm going to keep my symbol as -5 is greater than x. I do want to go ahead and rewrite this though, just to make it easier to graph. So x is less than -5, and then I can still plug in a number. So, well, let's go ahead and graph it. So my open circle on -5 And let's plug in. How about 0 is less than -5? That's not correct. -6 is less than -5. That is correct. So I'm going to go towards the -6 to the left. Okay, this one looks a little bit different because the variable's inside of the fraction. Remember when it's set up like this just says x divided by -3. So since it's dividing by -3, I'm going to do the opposite and multiply by -3 on both sides. Multiply by -3. So I get x over here. 1 times -3 is -3. Again, here in this step, I'm multiplying by a negative. So yes, I do need to flip my sign. So x is less than or equal to -3. And then I can graph that. So put my closed circle on -3. Let's plug in a number. So 0 is less than or equal to -3. No. -4 is less than or equal to -3. Yes, remember negatives are like opposite land. So -4 is less than 3. To the left. Okay. And go ahead to your last one. You go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so we should be multiplying by 2 on both sides. So we get y, we get -4. And here I am multiplying by a +2, so I do not flip my sign. Y is less than -4 would be my answer. And then to graph it, it's an open circle on on -4. Let's plug in a number. 0 is less than -4. No. -5 is less than -4. Yes. So to the left. And we've got a bunch of practice questions for you to try after this. So go ahead and do that and then check the key. Bye.